Okay, good evening. Good evening. This is Charles with the Exodus Logistics Learning Center, America's #1 dispatcher and freight broker training. Today is Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. We're getting closer to the end of the year, which is very interesting. Um, it is 6 p.m. This is our second week of the month's freight broker one-on-one Zoom training. So let me let them in and then see who they are and then let them out if they're not who they say they are. Uh, good evening, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I know you can't see me, but can everyone hear me? iPad,
Yes,
iPad 2. Who's iPad 2?
Damien.
Damien, there you go. So, Damien, if you don't mind in the future, because we've had some crazies come into our Zoom, identifying themselves as their phone, like iPhone 6 or iPad 2, and then made some crazy. There you go. I see it now. There you go. So now I know who you are. You changed to Damien. Okay, got it. All right. How's everybody doing?
Good, good. How about yourself? How's everybody?
Oh man, it's slow motion, slow motion. So, okay, thank you, LaDonna. Um, LaDonna changed it for me. So, what is the state? Because we're keeping our I'm going to try to do it for the dispatch as well, keeping our trainings to an hour on a specific topic on a specific point. But I wanted to see what you guys wanted to cover tonight as far as the point, right? So we have a small group right here tonight. So what is the pulse of the industry in your perspective, and what do you want to talk about? Let me know.
When you saying post, Charles,
The
what you
pulse,
referencing?
the pulse of the industry. What I mean by it is, in your opinion, what are you getting um, what's going on out here in the industry. Like ever since Trump got elected, ever since the strike ended with the workers, with the not the workers, but yeah, well the workers, the ILA, the International Longshoremen's Association's strike against the United States Maritime Alliance, the USMX, and the ILA. Has things changed? Is there a backlog of, well, obviously there is a backlog of freight coming into the country because those containers are backed up that are on those vessels off the coast, in addition to the ones that were already in the country trying to get transported or offloaded from the vessels onto the chassis to get moved. But that 3 day strike, can you imagine if it was longer strike, what would happen? But right now, um, it is a it was a 3 day strike and it caused a little bit of backlog. So what I mean by pulse, in your opinion, what do you think the mood or the pulse of the industry is right now? Is it like the same? Is it slower? Is it stagnant? What are you guys gathering? That's what I wanted to see from a broker standpoint.
It's kind of hard to tell, but I would say that I wouldn't say it's stagnant, because freight is backlogged, so you would have to, be making the right moves to try to get the freight moving forward, to its proper destination. I mean,
Okay.
I think that the prices to move the freight is probably going to go up. Um,
I'm glad you said that. So you're saying that the rates are going to increase from the perspective of the customers giving larger or higher tenders to the brokers and brokers giving higher rates to the carriers.
I would say a little bit of both, and I think all of it is probably offset by fuel, by the rising price of fuel. Um, Usually, when you have a situation where you have an influx of volume, um, fuel costs it costs more to run the business. So the fuel surcharges, some of them are usually added on, tacked into the services that's being provided. So, I mean, that's just my opinion on that. I kind of saw a lot of that, working for UPS all these years. So you kind of see, a little bit of things from here and there on how things are done, and sometimes where the customer actually absorbs some of those hidden costs.
Great point. Does anyone disagree? Out of Haven, Erica, myself, and LaDonna, does anyone I agree personally. The customer is always going to absorb the cost, unfortunately, right? There's probably, in most cases, the customers are the ones who eat um, costs in order for companies to uh, survive, if you will, right? When prices go up, like taxpayers, they get the brunt of, the regular taxpayers, the people who are in a certain tax bracket. Consumers get the brunt of it. The wealthy, because they understand the tax code more so than we do, then they understand how to avoid certain taxes. So, but in transportation, now is a good time. It may not seem like it'd be advantageous to go after customers as far as from a broker's perspective and get those customers because of backlog, because of the need to get freight moved. As a broker, you can step in and say, "Hey, I can provide a service that can arrange for your goods to be transported because I have a access to carriers or I have the ability to create a network of carriers to get your freight moved." So it'd be kind of advantageous right now because of the backlog. It's very fortunate that it wasn't uh it wasn't longer because it would have been, a very serious issue. The economy would have been affected a little bit more so by that. So anyone else on the pulse of the and what I mean by pulse, so do you guys read the like different publications in transportation? If you're going to be in this environment, it would be wise to look into the different publications that are out there for transportation, for logistics and things like that. For example, one is called um, Supply Chain Dive, I believe it's called. Well, if I type it correctly. Yes, right there. So this website provides up to the minute or updated content um, in transportation. And how is even President-elect Trump being elected going to fare with like right here, Trump's tariffs, how manufacturers can prepare. So the idea, well, first of all, what is a tariff? Does anyone know what a tariff is? TARIFFS. And we're looking at this from a broker's perspective. We'll tie it into the brokering perspective, but everything has either a direct or an indirect effect on who we are or who we're trying to become as freight brokers. In this case, it's going to have an indirect effect on us. The word tariffs, right? So at some point, it's going to hit our front desk, and we're going to have to adjust our brokering processes in order to deal with this. So, what is a tariff?
It's like an imposed tax on the shipment of imports and exports.
Correct. So, another word for it is called duty. When goods are, in our case, for the U.S., are imported into the country, um, there's a certain tax that the government or the government, Customs Border Protection, CBP, though they're the governing bodies when it comes to importing and exporting, charge for the foreign countries to import their finished goods into our country. That is called a duty or an import tax or what's called a tariff. Um, Trump is proposing because we are in, I guess, competition a lot with a lot of those countries that we are allowing to import their finished goods, like China, Russia, these large manufacturers over there that ship their goods, their finished products, because we get a lot of our products from overseas, namely China, right? Japan, China, Taiwan, all these different foreign countries that make those finished products that come into here. Well, he wants to raise the tariffs in order to stabilize the economy more so, charge a higher tax to bring those products into the country. So I have a different opinion about that. I mean, it's good in one way, it's good in one way and bad in another way. But those goods, because we have outsourced our ability to manufacture our own products in our country. We've moved a lot of the manufacturers in this country have moved overseas. We've gotten to the point now where we've become reliable on foreign made products coming into the country because a lot of the goods that we consume as a consumer nation, not a producer nation, are made overseas. There are no more, well, I can't say no more, but there are a lot less US based manufacturers, right? They're more foreign based. So in order, Trump is trying to balance that, I guess, scale, if you will, by raising the tariffs um, for them to bring their finished products into the country. Now, you can take advantage of that as a broker. I'm looking into it from a warehousing standpoint where I have a warehouse where we can do what's called make it a bonded warehouse or what's called a foreign trade zone, a FTZ or a bonded warehouse, whereby when those foreign companies bring those products in, they can come in duty or tax free. Now, and that'll be advantageous to us in the country because we can make money from that, having the ability to have those products come in duty free. Now, from a broker's perspective, let's look at it from a broker's perspective, a freight broker, someone who arranges for the transportation of that freight coming in with a trucking company going to pick up the goods either from the uh, the seaports, the rail ports, or the airports. You are brokering that from those customers to get their products. Now, would it be more advantageous for a broker to have a customer who has a cheap tariff to bring their products in as opposed to a higher tariff to bring their products in to have it arranged to be transported to their end user company, either a distribution center, a retail store, wherever it's going to end up. That is how we look at this particular example from a broker's perspective. How can we leverage our skills in order to assist? In this case, it is going to be a foreign manufacturer, a foreign shipper that brings the products in and then have it delivered to the end user on US soil. So, but staying up to date on what's happening in the economy and in logistics, even from a broker's perspective, some of us may think that we don't have any relation in this, I guess, relationship, for lack of a better word, but we do indirectly because it'll affect us downstream. So So stuff like that. That's what supply chain dive gives you, and it gives you information from every aspect of the industry, what we call logistics and freight and procurement. So all of these terms I'm mentioning and operations and technology, all of these terms you see on this website makes up what's called the supply chain. Right here, this word here, the supply chain involves procurement, which is getting products produced and made, operations, how you leverage that, logistics, how do you get the products from the producer to the consumer, and then transportation. So that is within the supply chain. So having an understanding of that as well will make you a little bit more of a well-rounded broker. Damon, you said you work with UPS.
Yes, yeah.
What was your role with them again?
Driving package car, delivering packages.
Okay, you were just the driver. You go get your truck loaded, get your manifest, and then do your delivery.
Exactly.
Okay.
Deliveries and pickups.
Okay. So you also you did pickups, reverse logistics. You would do reverse logistics where you would get the products that would being a customer may didn't want something because it was damaged, or you got to go pick it up and to have it returned.
Well,
You,
that's part of it. But when I say pickups, that's just like when you go a company, you may deliver, and that company has products that they manufacture or whatever, and then you make the what would they call a pickup? You pick up that the goods that they're shipping out as well, not just delivering, but you're also picking up whatever they're shipping out. And it just goes into the network, and that's how the volume moves around the world every day.
Right.
That's how UPS or any delivery company pretty much moves on a daily basis. From the packages that's being picked up from the businesses on a daily basis, and they're, quote unquote, they're processed that night, and then they continue to move until they get to where they're going. So that's how that operation usually runs, and pretty much in a nutshell.
Now, have you got, is your broker authority active? Have you,
I just went active today.
oh, congratulations then.
Yeah, so I was actually going to talk to you about a few things as far as moving forward, because I've gone through the process of pretty much everything that I needed to. Um, Thank you, Madonna. Get my license. So just kind of want to see how to navigate from this point, moving forward.
So my advice to you would be this. Okay, you have an active authority. Do you have factoring?
That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. I mean, I've had, just like you said though, when you put in and you complete your application on the CSA website, then you got thousands of people calling you and texting you and email. I mean, it's just been a lot. Um, but I haven't done anything with factoring yet. I've actually talked to one or two people about the factoring, and but I
Okay.
haven't made any moves on that part yet. I'm just trying to, get a feel for just going with, what what works for me, and not being paying like a over excessive fee
So
to process.
before we talk about factor, let me ask you some questions that maybe some others need to hear who have not gotten their authority. As far as your bond, um, what company did you go with to get your bond?
I
Your
went I went with the one you have listed on the site, International Sureties with
okay, so
with Jessica
Jessica.
Palmieri.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, it was pretty straightforward. She was very hands on. Um, I did the bond for 1 year. It was like for $925. They did a 2 year. I think that was like maybe 1,700, and I think a 3 year is like 2,300. And then after 3 years, they give you the option to, I guess they reevaluate everything, and you can get it lower than what you initially paid for it. So, but I mean, the process really only took like maybe like a day, day and a half, something like that.
Good. So she pretty much asked you a series of questions, kind of vetted you, saw what your credit was, kind of determined what your rate would be, and gave you certain options, 1, 2, 3 year, based off of what she gathered from you.
Exactly.
And then she filed I'm assuming you did the surety bond, the BMC 84.
Yes, exactly. For 75,000, she filed everything, and then she was very informative. Once everything went through, she just shot me an email. We were pretty much spot on with everything from the time. She actually emailed me the application, and I just did it electronically and sent it back over to her. She processed it, and I made the payment and whatnot. Everything was filed electronically, just like you said it was. So
Yes, sir.
yeah,
Anyone has any questions for Damien as far as the bond? I know some people in here are moving towards getting an active authority, and you may be at the bond stage. No questions there. Hey, Fishel, how you doing? Um,
Good, good. How are you, Sir Colin?
all right, how are you?
Good.
Okay, so no questions at the bond. So we got someone who got their bond. We just want to make sure that maybe someone else who may be at that stage may have a question there that can help them out.
I
So,
would like to say this though, Charles. I talked with other bond companies,
uh-huh,
like I think it was like Surety Bonds and JW Bonds, some of the more bigger names,
right.
but they were not adamant about working with new brokers because they, said it was tied to a lot of fraud in the industry. So unless you had experience or maybe like 2 or 3 years in the industry, they didn't want to consider, doing a surety bond with you. So that's just something to keep in mind for anyone who want to reach out to these other companies. I didn't have any issues with international sureties through with Jessica Palmieri. Um, me and her, we talked very extensively about the process, and you know, how things will be handled or should a situation arise. But a lot of the bigger companies, they were not, they're not wanting to work with new brokers.
And that's unfortunate because not everyone is a scammer, right? There are people out here who are genuinely trying to become freight brokers, not trying to scam. Um,
Yes,
and
and
the
another
question
thing,
becomes, how do you scam a bond company, first of all? But I get it, but yeah.
their biggest, and another thing I wanted to add on that, they were like wanting someone to put up, I want to say it was like $125,000 worth of collateral or something like that.
Now that's the scam right there. Once you said that, so I shouldn't have to put up
Collateral.
money like that in order to get the bond like that. Now that's a scam to me. That would
Yeah,
so
'cause I, like I said, I reached out to several companies. I called maybe about, I'd probably say about five or six bond companies, just trying to feel them out. Um,
because
but
what happens if you put that money up and you don't get the bond? Who's to say you're going to get the money back? Is there something you sign? Is there some kind of paperwork you sign saying, okay, I put this money up for collateral. I did not meet, for whatever reason, the requirements to have a bond. Do I get my money back? And is there something documented that says that and notarized and stuff like that? Was that explained like that or no?
no, they didn't go into detail about that. They were just, most of them, they were just kind of like along the same lines. They ask you how many years experience do you have, and um, they do a soft pull on your credit if you choose to do business with them. But they were, pretty much giving the bullet points up front as to basically making a decision around how many years of experience you have as a broker or carrier. And if you're new, then they're not interested in working with you.
So that's not fair because everyone at some point, even the bigger brokers at some point had to have started somewhere. Everyone had to be new at some point and didn't have any experience. So to not give someone an opportunity would be, I understand the how it is today because of a lot of the scams. And back in the day, it was not as much. So that's probably why they were given opportunities back then as opposed to now because of what's going on. So I get that part, but still, there should be systems in place for the bigger companies, you would think, to vet out and determine who's um, trying to scam them as opposed to not. And like I just mentioned, have some systems in place where if you put collateral up, have to give them a guarantee. Well, if you don't, you put the money up. If you get the bond, we keep the money. If you don't get the bond, we return it back to you, right? And have that in writing, signed electronically or whatever, right? That way, I can have legal recourse to go after you in case you scam me. Because what guarantees do I have if I send you this money, I'm gonna get it back if I don't get the bond? That's the thought process that I would have.
Exactly.
So
I thought that was kind of, they promote they're promoting their services, but that's not written in the fine print. If you go on the websites, you kind of look over their requirements and stuff like that. So, once they, I reached out to them, and that's what the majority of them said.
yeah,
And
so you got
basically tied to them not wanting to be scam or because so much fraud is going on in the industry. So,
yeah, but so large company like that, if that's something that's something like that could be a possible violation of SEC regulations when you're trying to ask potential consumers for collateral without any type of guarantee behind it. So that, and I'm not sure if they are aware of that, how that works, but that's exactly what it is. But yeah, it's just weird to me that as soon as you said it, I was like, what? Wait a minute, no.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Um,
So yeah, that's not yeah. I would if I was a bond company, I wouldn't even put that on my tongue because now you're opening the door to a lawsuit. So, but I'm grateful. So I had the conversation with Jessica, her primary, and she even has on her application to check the box that a person is part of the Exodus family. So once we have that conversation, if anyone comes through who's an Exodus person and fills out your application, then
yeah, I told her, she knew exactly who you were. So, yeah,
so it's a go right there. So that's good. So it's all about sometimes, and most times I guess it's all about relationships, in the industry. Sometimes it's not what you know, it's who you know. So that can help you as well. So Jessica's pretty good. Um if you are anyone listening on here or on here tonight on the Zoom or listening on the when it's going to be broadcast, and you are heading towards your bond, trying to get get your bond active, a BMC 84 surety bond, Jessica Palmieri with international sureties is a good option to look into because, as Damien said, she even gives individuals who are just starting their brokerages an opportunity to pursue a bond, to get a bond. So, but everyone else is past the bond point in their process. Everyone in the Zoom call is past the bond point in their process of becoming a broker. No one else is going after the bond. So even before that too, Damien, the application process, when you selected the items that you were going to be brokering, you did you select just general freight or you selected others in there?
I just selected general freight
Okay.
because I knew from the class, whether we selected multiple things, um, everything still was good unless you chose household goods. But yeah, I just selected general freight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we did I think we did a training not too long ago, a detailed intensive training in brokering where we actually went through the OP1 form online. I created a fictitious email and then I could only take that so far, but the point was to show you in depth the actual online application and what to select and what to say, right? So hopefully you guys reviewed that who are looking to start a brokerage and understand how to. That is the first step. You have to indicate to the FMCSA that you are pursuing trying to become a freight broker. And to do that, that's the application on their site. Register with the FMCSA and fill out the OP1 form after you create a login.com or login.gov username and password. So that's step one, pay the $300 non-refundable. If you only selected one option in step two, like if you selected broker of property except household goods or whatever, if it's just one, then you're only paying $300. If you select multiple options, like if you select a broker option as well as a motor carrier option, because the OP1 form is also for motor carrier. If you selected two, then it's whatever number you selected times 300. So 2 times 300 would be 600. So just be careful when you're checking those boxes because when you get to the end, you got a bill. They're gonna it's gonna say either 300 to 4 600 900 whatever you selected. So um okay, so and I'm asking as we go, and I'm using Damon as a because he just got his authority active. So you did the application, Damien, you did the bond, the BMC 84 for the 75,000. You said for 1 year, right? You did 1 year?
Yeah. Yeah. 1 year.
Okay.
Yep.
Um, and yours was less than 1,000, which means you got some pretty good credit. So
Yeah. They give it, because we talked about all that. I asked her about, you know, what I got to do to qualify for a lower rate, but they won't review that part of it until you've actually had the bond for 3 years. And then after 3 years, they'll give you an opportunity to negotiate a lower rate than what you initially signed up for.
and you know why that is, right? They want you to establish, they want to see uh movement in your brokerage. They want to see loads tendered. They want to see uh revenue coming in. They want to see if there's any claims filed against you, any red flags to determine whether your bond's going to be lower or not. So they just want to see movement and traction. That's one of the main reasons why they said that. I didn't know it was 3 years. I thought it was less, but yeah. But I get why though. I understand. So
And
okay,
it could be 3 years, like with different places, but that's what she said. Well, that's what she told me. So,
so international surety that may be their time frame, maybe 3 years. Other companies may be more, some may be less. But so it's cool, it's fine. So, you know, if you guys agree to it and you just got your bond and everything's good. You could just provide the movement, the traction, and 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 tendering freight as a broker. So your next step after your bond, did you do your designation of the agent, or did you do your UCR?
I did the BOC3.
Okay, so you did your designation of the agent of process.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you mind, can I look your information up with your MC and DOT,
Well, let me get.
or
Uh,
the name of your company?
it's Better Solution Logistics LLC.
That's North Augusta, South
Yes,
Carolina.
yes, sir.
All right, bam, popped up. So what Mr. Damien did after he, first of all, he did the application. So everyone should understand the order, right? If you're gonna apply to be a broker as a new person, a new beginner, that's what this class is, freight broker training for beginners. And I mean, we'll talk about a little bit more intermediate stuff too, but you got to establish your foundation first. Obviously, you can't become intermediate without a foundation. I mean, that's just right. That's just how it is. So Mr. Damon he's an authorized broker of property, authorized for broker of property. Active, he's active. That's his status. He's active. His entity is a broker. So yours, when you guys get yours, it's going to say the same thing. Um, did his MCS 150 form on the 22nd of October this year. His MC number is here. His DOT is here. And there's his MC, right? There's his name, his office address, either home or office, brick and mortar or physical, um, or virtual, I should say. Operation classification, he's authorized for hiring. Of course, he wants to get paid for his services, obviously. Interstate, not intrastate. So he can broker, he can get in other words, he can get customers in various states all over the country, right? Interstate. He can move freight for customers in any state in the union, right? What I just asked him previously when he checked when he was doing the OP1 form and he's what cargo he wants to broker or carry or have trucks carry, he said general freight and it says it right here with the X next to general freight. And I was just curious if you checked other things and he said no. And the look up the company snapshot of his company in Safer indicated that right here. Okay. Everything else is going to be zeroed out because he's just starting. Okay. Like down here, for example, this mainly applies to the truckers, their inspections and things like that, their vehicle and driver inspections, not so to the broker. And now it's even added more data here under the inspections information. But let's go to his L and I licensing and insurance page, which is up here under other information for this carrier. Okay. We can go to SMS, but that's more on the trucking side with dealing with compliance and things like that, accidents and stuff. We're going to go to L&I, licensing and insurance. And we were talking about his agent of process company that he chose because each process server company has representatives in all 50 states. If you're going to be a broker, you have to have at least an agent of process, at least in the states that you have customers in, your shippers, your customers, right? So that makes sense, right? If I'm going to be moving freight for a customer in Georgia, it makes sense to have an agent of process in that state. And the question becomes, well, what is this agent of process? What does that even mean? So, Mr. Damien, can you define for us what is an agent of process and what do they do? What's their purpose?
They handle things from the legal obligation. If somebody tries to sue you, or you have any issues with fraud or anything like that, they kind of responsible for getting the legal paperwork to you.
Right, correct. That is very much so. So let's go to HTML. And so for Mr. Damien, his agent of process or BOS, the form to let the FMCSA know the I should say it like this, the form that the process company that you have chosen or anyone has chosen to let the FMCSA know that you've met the requirements to have an agent of process, that form is called Form BOC-3, which is blanket of companies, right? BOC, blanket of coverage, blanket of company. Mr. Davis chose number 1A BOC Filings Inc. And I'll click that. And like I said before, each company, whether it doesn't matter which one, they're going to have representatives in all 50 states. So you're covered in all 50 states, whether you have a customer in that state or not, right? So, and you can get customer, let's say he's in South Carolina. Let's say he gets his first customer also somewhere in South Carolina. Well, the South Carolina rep is Robert Mosley Jr., right?
Hmm.
And that's who that is. And there's his address right there. You could probably reach out to him and get his number and things like that. But he has a suite number B and all this other stuff. So he represents the South Carolina, he represents the South Carolina region for this agent of process company. Now, someone else can represent the South Carolina region for another agent of process company. It just so happens that number 1A BOC3 Filings Inc. in South Carolina is represented by Robert Mosley. Hopefully, everyone follows that, right? So he did the form BOC, the form to let the FMCSA know that you've met this next requirement to become a freight broker is the form BOC-3. Okay. And he has his company here. Let's go back one to here. So Mr. Damien here, and let's go to authority. So his authority was granted today. 11, it says property granted 11/12/2024. Again, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it took a couple of days for everything. I did everything last week. I finished up everything last week. First, I think it was probably first part of last week. And
So
just
Mr. Damon has no applications pending, no applications for a common carrier, a contract carrier, but his broker authority type is his authority status for his broker authority type is active right there. Nothing's pending. It's already active. He's already met all of the requirements for it to be active. He has a broker of property, yes, right? Everything else is no, right? Most insurances, even for the carriers, are not on file or not listed here in Safer, but they are on file. Now, he has a bond requirement. Yes, there is a bond requirement. Is there insurance on file? Yes, his bond is on file. It's not listed here, but it's on file, right? So he has circled all, he's not circled, but he's checked all the boxes to be an active freight broker. And you guys will too once you get to that process. Now, your next step after BOC3 is the final step, right? Which the final requirement, there's other things, but the final requirement is your UCR,
that's correct.
right? So you went to the UCR.gov and you put because when you did the application, paid the $300 fee, you should have received a grant letter with your DOT and MC in it, but not active yet, but it's still assigned to you, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So when you went to UCR.gov, I'm not going to do yours. I just wanted to show the individuals, the people, the steps. You put your DOT here. You view terms and conditions, privacy, check the box and hit submit, and then you went through and completed the UCR registration.
Exactly.
And you put, I'm assuming, I believe it's either 0 to 2 or 0 to 4 because you are a new broker and you're not asset based, correct?
Exactly. And yeah, 0 to 2. And they charge you based on, the number, like the equipment or whatever, what I'm saying?
That's
Um,
that's correct.
yeah,
Okay. So you put that there and the higher in assets that you list in the UCR, I believe is proportion to the price. The more it's going to be charged.
exactly.
Okay. So so the reason why I'm saying it like that so everyone can hear and kind of understand. So when you get to these stages, it'll help you because you would have heard it before. That's the beauty of this training. We kind of make sure that you guys have a clear overview of this stuff, right? At least the basic requirements, right? Now, did you get any extra insurances like errors and omissions or contingent cargo? or you just decided to wait until you at least get a customer and start generating some revenue and then um, go from there?
Well, I'm looking to, so I just want to do some research on that and kind of find the niches and who I want to go with as far as that is concerned. I do want to get some extra coverage. Um,
And the reason why I asked that because every time extra insurance, of course, puts you, the broker, at an advantage in the eyes of the customer, the shipper, because it shows that you have skin in the game. In addition to your carriers, let's say, for example, cargo insurance for the carrier, of course, you're going to list yourself as a certificate holder on their certificate of insurance, your carrier that you've onboarded to your brokerage when you're moving freight for your customer. But in addition to that, because that helps cover, that starts the coverage process. Let's say your carrier is carrying 100,000 cargo, something happens, a claim is filed, and the value of the claim um, exceeds the 100,000. So if you got some contingent cargo, then your contingent kicks in and absolves the difference, right? So um, let's say your contingent is 250,000 on top of the carrier's 100,000. So the shipper sees $350,000 of coverage for their freight, even though their freight is only valued at maybe at 150. But they're saying, okay, yeah, this shipper is showing some skin in the game. Maybe I should give them an opportunity. They want to make sure that my freight is protected while in transit and while um under their brokerage, right? So that's contingent cargo. And then the other one is what's called errors and omissions. So as new brokers, mostly, some experienced brokers do make mistakes too, but most of the time it's the new brokers because they're so focused on doing it right that mistakes are still made, right? You may forget to tell a carrier on a flatbed load not to tarp it or to tarp it or drive in or a reefer load. You may set the temperature continuously at a certain degrees, but it was told to you to do it at this. So there's certain things that you may make a mistake under. And if it's the fault of the broker, then it falls on the broker. And the errors and omissions um, steps in and covers that. So if you have that, right? But as a new broker, you want to make sure that all your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted. But errors and omission does help you if you have the budget. Now, we're not saying it's a requirement. It's not a requirement to have the extra insurance coverage of contingent cargo and errors and omissions. It is not a requirement. But if you have the budget and you can afford to get it, I would suggest at least considering doing so, especially as new brokers. Okay.
you suggest both, Charles, or maybe
If you have the budget for both, it'd be great. But I would say if you want to choose one over the other one, I would say CCI, contingent cargo, because
okay.
you're less likely to make an error than you are to have some kind of claim filed against you or your carrier for some kind of damaged freight or something like that. It's more the likelihood is higher on the damage side than it is on you making an error side. So the suggestion is more so for the CCI contingent cargo than it would be for the errors and omission.
Okay. So what's the kind of process of going about getting a contingent cargo policy and kind of throw out some companies of who you would recommend?
Well, I would start with the most popular insurance companies, the Nationwides, the Progressives, the State Farms on the commercial side, um, and then maybe a few small to medium mom and pops that'll probably give you a shot, like just like Jessica Palmieri gave you a shot as a new broker. The small to medium mom and pop commercial insurance companies will kind of give you a decent rate in order to stay competitive with the bigger boys. They want to get your money. They want to get your service. So, and I understand that's just the nature of business. So, but yeah. So the Nationwides, the State Farms, the Progressives. Um, let's look them up a little. Let's look a few up, and then give them a call. Hey, I'm looking for some commercial insurance company. I'm a freight broker. Just got my authority. I'm looking to shop around for some contingent cargo or errors and omissions coverage on the policy. Um, so, and see what they have to offer you. And I would say commercial insurance. I would say, or even Geico's. Um, I would say do at least 3 to 5 and see who has the best rates and who has the not only the best rates but the best uh options for those rates, right? So members choice nationwide. Now it's looking up in my specific area. I'm in, this area here, the Chesapeake Hampton Roads area, but you'll probably find it in your area. Um,
Is that something that's got to be paid on a monthly basis, the contingent cargo insurance, or how does that?
I believe you can structure it, the method and the frequency differently. I don't want
Okay,
to misquote that, but in most cases they'll probably want a monthly premium. But if you can afford to pay annually, I'll just go ahead and get it out the way. Again, if you have the budget, right?
okay,
If you're going to use that service and you have the budget to afford to get it to pay it for an annual, just like your bond, annually pay it to have the annual coverage. But most people, most new brokerages, they're don't have as much as far as a budget as far as taking on extra insurances. They've already covered the bond, so it'd probably be easier for them, lighter for them to pay it on a monthly basis, like a $50 or less per month to have a certain amount of contingent cargo or errors and omissions.
okay.
So
You can get errors and omissions coverage as well through these national companies or the mom and pop companies as well.
if they offer the service, yes.
Okay,
If they offer the service, right. Some of them may roll them into some kind of bundle as well. So those are the types of questions you would want to present to them. At some point, I may want to get an commercial insurance agent on one of the Zoom calls who have the availability to come in on our night Zoom, and we could probably ask those types of questions. And they'll probably be willing to come in because I can say, well, if you provide some great answers, you may get some customers wanting your services, right? So
thank you.
they'll be more than willing to probably want to come in. If it were me, I would say, of course, I'll do it, and then because I'm trying to get some customers anyway, right? Um, so everybody's trying to wash each other's hands, I guess. One hand washes the other. So it's the nature of the world these days. Bankers insurance. So we all these different commercial. Yeah. So just Google commercial insurance, insurance in your agent, in your area, and then go from there. Now, of course, you want to do your diligence, right, by kind of vetting them out, looking at their reviews, like 5 star and all this other stuff. Just kind of see what people are saying about them before you even consider giving them a call. Like this one here, 10 plus years in business, 5 stars, 4.9 out of 5. So, and then you just go from there. This is local. This is to me, local to me. I'm in the Portsmouth area. So but in your area, do the same thing. You know, how many years of experience they have. They've been around 10 plus years. Obviously, they've made their mistakes and gotten past that and survived, right? 10 years, obviously, you bumped your head a few times and learned from that. And to still be there 10 years, that says that's my thought process, right? I don't know what you guys think about that, but that's my thought process. You've been there 10 plus years, you learned a few things,
Okay, okay, that's right.
so 4.9 out of 5 stars, and go in there and read some of the comments that people are saying. Well, I don't like this person because people talk on emotion, right? They may not be satisfied with the particular agent they talk to, but the company itself is great. But the agent that they particularly dealt with just didn't have people skills. So don't rule out a company because one agent, you know, may not have had an experience with a customer that we would like them to have, right? So you got to look at it. You got to look at it from an overview type of perspective. You can't just rule a company out because of that, because you'll do yourself a disservice. Right? I learned that the hard way. So, you know, it's all about dealing with people on an individual. I don't judge. I don't do an overall judging of a particular group. I do it individually at this point in my life. It's like I can't judge a group based off of the behavior of one person. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's just how it is. But so yeah, consider that if you can get that up front, then yes. And then next for you, Mr. Damien, will be um, you're working on your infrastructure in the back end as far as your documents, your packets, right?
Yeah,
Your
yeah.
your
I'm gonna use
dispatcher.
your stuff as a guide, the broker package, and see how you got everything set up.
Yeah, yep, the broker packet types.
Yeah.
Yeah, from our templates, you can use our templates or you can create your own from your resources. This was just a stepping stone for you. We want to make sure that you have the bare minimum in the packets that's required, right? Like the broker shipper packet, what you're going to send to a shipper, the bare minimum what you need. You don't want to have too much fluff because if I was a shipper and I receive a 36-page novel from a broker trying to get my business, I'm not going to read that. I just want to make sure that you are who you say you are. I can qualify you, and I'm not trying to, read that you like fishing and you got 3 kids and a dog and all this other stuff. I can care less. I want to know if you can move my freight efficiently, if I can call on you when I need to, and you got some good rates. Everything else is irrelevant because I'm too busy trying to run a multi-million-dollar warehouse and trying to get my finished goods to my customers. And I'm considering using you as a broker to do that. So when you send me your qualification documents, I just need to see what I need to see, right?
Hmm.
So I need to see that you are who you say you are. I need to see the agreement, first of all, the broker shipper agreement. What are we talking about contractually? And then I need to see, okay, you got a little small profile. Okay, I got that, the little details of you. Okay, point taken, boom, that's good. And then I need to see that you are who you say you are. Okay, well, what documents tells me that you are who you say you are? Well, your broker license, right? This right here says that you are who you say you are. You don't need to send me your bond because your broker license already says you have a bond. You can't have a license without having a bond, correct?
Exactly.
So if you just send the license, okay, that covers the bond, the actual application, the OP1 form, the BOC3, the UCR. All that's covered. So you don't need to send a copy of any of that. You send a copy of the license, you covered all of that. It's already in a big umbrella and everything else is under that, right? And then if you have certificate of insurance, send that, your W-9. And if you're working with factoring, then send the credit application and the notice of assignment telling me that you have a factoring company. That's what the notice of assignment says. Hey, I have a factoring company and they want all the invoices payable to me, the broker, by you, the shipper, to be now payable to them, the factoring company, because they have stepped in and have taken my place. I am a client of the factoring company, says the broker. So that's what that relationship is. Number six, the credit application is the factoring company's way of qualifying the customer. Because again, not every customer is a good customer. Customers do bad things too. They have issues, they have red flags. There's been claims and issues and lawsuits. So the factoring company not only protects the client broker, but they also protect the client trucking company too, carrier. So that's how that works. So that's your first packet type that you work on as a new.
Oh, let me ask you this right here.
Yeah,
Um, okay, I went through the process of getting my license. Now, will I actually receive a copy of that from the FMCSA?
I would sincerely hope so. Yes, either by
Oh,
mail or email or physical mail. Yes, you
okay.
definitely can see that. Yes, and if not, reach out to them. Call their 888 number or 800 number and say, yeah, you definitely need to. You will definitely have a copy of that. You frame it, put it on your wall, or have extra copies. So yes, definitely, you should have gotten that by now. Well, no, you just came active
Yeah,
today.
just yeah, today, yeah.
Give them by close of business Friday. If not, call them the following week.
Okay,
But it
okay,
shouldn't take that. It shouldn't take that long to get it
okay.
because everything's done electronically these days. They can probably send you an email as opposed to physically sending it to you through the post office, through the postal service. So
Yeah, I was checking the email. I didn't get it through the email yet, and I was
mhm.
just gonna download it off of that. But
Yeah, and then I would assume with the FMCSA that they may not have this type of service, but there should be a somewhere in their website, there should be a portal where you can go to, type in your MC and DOT number, and it should be able to download a PDF version of your license. I would assume that that would be a service that they would provide, but I've been wrong before, so I don't want to give your hopes up like that. But you would think that the network people at the FM that website they will provide that type of service. You can go to our portal, put your MC and DOT, and if it's active, here's a link to the PDF, download it, and there you go.
okay, all right.
But if that's not the case, which I probably doubt. You probably would have to either wait for them to send it to you or give them a call to have them email to you. And then check your spam folder too, because they may in the next few days check your spam folder because stuff sometimes go to your spam folder. So,
Okay. All right.
but what we call junk mail, spam or junk mail, right? So, yeah. So
And
that's the. Go ahead.
I was gonna just say to all the members of the class, this is a process that you can do yourself because put that once you complete the application process, you're going to get a whole bunch of phone calls about people who wanted to offer their services
Yeah.
for basically something that you can do yourself. And in all, I spent about a little over $1,300 for everything. So that's the application, the bond, the BOC3, and the UCR. So they're just, for just being more efficient, as far as the saving money, just knowing where your money's going because you really don't have to pay anyone to do this for you. I
Right.
just,
So
I
there
just wanted to
there
put
are
that out there. Yeah.
there are third party companies out there who for whatever reason, whatever motivation, they'll kind of deceive people and thinking that, hey man, this is a complicated process. Let us do it for you at for $300, $600, right? To
Yeah.
so, but yeah, but Mr. Damien just brought home the point that it can be done. And it definitely can be done. So from the time that you started the application process until the time that you just got it active today, how long was that? A month? Couple of weeks? How long was that?
It was just a couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. So the FMCSA gives its applicants up to 90 days to get the whole process done before you have to restart over and everything. So most people get it done in less than half that time, which is what, less than 45 days. You got it done in 14 days, 2 weeks, about 2 weeks. So it can be done, once you, especially once you understand the process and the steps and the order of how it should be done. The application first, which is the indicator to FMCSA that you are interested in getting a broker license, a broker authority. And then your next step, you have to have the bond, and then the process agent, the BOC3, and then the UCR. That's it.
That's correct. And
So,
it only takes a few minutes to do really all of this. So it's just a matter of, just paying for it and they processing it. And usually the turnaround time is pretty quick. So
so applying and getting the broker authority is the easy part. The challenge is getting the customer and start moving some freight. Getting the customer and getting the carrier under your brokerage, getting them set up and approved under your brokerage, and then getting a customer to tender you loads. In other words, give you loads to move for them at for a fee. That is the challenge. Getting the authority is not the challenge. That's easy, right? As you can see, Damien took 2 weeks and he spent less than 2 grand, less than 1,500. So to do it. Right now, he was fortunate because now there are variables in there. Your credit and things like that. You have to have certain things to get better rates, of course, but it's possible, right? So yeah. And then the second packet type is this first packet type is on the relationship between you, the broker, and the customer, the shipper, the customer, the manufacturer, the person who needs you to arrange for their freight, their finished goods to be transported to their customer. That is the shipper. Okay. So that's the first packet type. The second packet type is who are you going to use to move that freight to the customer for your shipper? Well, it's the carrier. So that is the broker carrier packet. So you see how the two tie together? See how the relationship is now at this point?
yeah,
So now your carrier packet is you now getting information from your potential carrier to vet them and onboard them or qualify them under your brokerage. So you want, just like the shipper wanted things from you to qualify you, you want things from the carrier to qualify them to make sure that you have the best carrier under your brokerage to move the freight for your customer because you want to keep your customer long term. So you want to get some of the better carriers, right? So the first thing you would need is your broker carrier agreement. What are you and that carrier, what type of relationship you guys going to have contractually? Just like what type of relationship you and the shipper had contractually, and I'm not going to go into detail of the verbiage. You can look for that for yourself in the back office, but that's the contract, right? That you say, and you make that up. You can tweak that how you see fit as a broker because everybody's different, right? Individual. Second, you want to have a little small profile of your carrier, right? You want to know who they are, who the driver of the truck is. Do they have factoring? Do they have a dispatcher? Do they have an MC DOT? All these, just various pieces of information that you have at your disposal in case you need to get a hold of that person. And then the things that you need copies of in order to qualify the carrier, the truck driver, the owner, operator for your brokerage. You need to know, just like the shipper needed to know that you were who you said you were. Well, what document was that? That was your broker license. Well, if you flip that on the broker side now, what documents do you need from the carrier in order to qualify them to be a carrier? Well, first you need their authority. They have to have that first. If you get someone that you're trying to qualify to move freight for your customer and they don't have an authority, you need to move on because they're not going to be able to move anything. If they don't have the authority to carry it, to transport it, then that stops at the door right there. There's no point in moving on if they don't have this. If they don't have a certificate that says that they are authorized by the FMCSA to engage in transportation as a common carrier, if they don't have that, they can't provide that to you. Next, it's time to move on because the buck stops there. They can't move the freight. It just can't. It can't happen. So that's number one. Then number two, you need to make sure that they have the proper insurance to cover what they have the authority to transport. So I say it like that because I wanted to make sense to you guys, right? If you don't, first of all, you have to have the authority to transport the freight. Then you have to have the right insurance to cover what you are transporting. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure. So,
This certificate of insurance or certificate of liability, this is the proper paperwork that you will receive once you get the apply for extra insurance like contingent cargo on your
yes,
behalf and from the carrier from the carrier's behalf, right?
it's pretty much the same format. It usually comes from like a cord or something like that. But yes, it's the same format. And the boxes, I go into detail of like the producer is the insurance company, the insured is the actual carrier in this case, because we're talking about the carrier. Now, for you, if you were to get the contingent cargo, the producer would be your insurance company and the insured would be you, your brokerage, right? But we're talking about the carrier side right now. But
Okay.
yes, the format is the same, correct? It'll just the characters will be different if it like, for example, if it were you getting contingent cargo or errors and omissions, then you would be listed under box three under the insured. But right now it's you, the broker, trying to qualify a potential carrier for your brokerage in order to move freight for your customer. Then they will be the motor carriers, trucking, ABC trucking, or whatever they're called, will be under box three in this example. So, and then down in box five, it'll list the policy on the whatever type of insurance they have, the policy number, when it started, the effective date, and the expiration date. Um, like for most carriers, they carry um, cargo coverage, general cargo coverage, and general liability. Cargo coverage usually in the minimum amount of, and it'll be listed over here. The policy for cargo, the policy for liability listed. Cargo will be 100,000 minimum, and then liability minimum for to have commercial insurance as a motor carrier is 750,000. But most brokers liability minimum requirement nowadays is 1 million. Okay, just so you know, and it'll be listed in this area. And then you break it down, either aggregate, personal injury, workman's comp. It'll break it down specifically how it is, so you'll know exactly what it is. Um, and then box six will just describe the operations. Box seven is where if this is the carrier side, you would list yourself as a certificate holder, or you would have the carrier list your brokerage as a certificate holder on their certificate of insurance. So you will um, have a hold on you'll be a certificate holder on their coverage. So if something happens, a claim or anything like that, it goes into their coverage first to exhaust any monetary amounts before it goes to your side, the broker. Okay.
Okay.
And um, and then finally, just like on the broker shipper side, your carrier wants to have a W-9 showing that they are a legitimate company with an EIN number attached to their business name. And then also finally under the broker carrier side, if the carrier is working with factoring, just like you were when you were a broker working with factoring for your shipper, the carrier's factoring company will have a notice of assignment saying that that the carrier is a client of the factoring company and all invoices that are payable by you, the broker, to the carrier are now payable by you, the broker, to the factoring company because the factoring company has stepped in and have assumed the role for the carrier on behalf of the carrier. And in the credit application, the same as it was on the broker shipper side, that is vetting the shipper. Well, the carrier's factoring company's credit application on the broker carrier side is vetting you, the broker. They're doing a credit check on you, checking your credit score and your credit rating, any claims filed against you, just to see if you are favorable for lines of credit factoring. So that's how it works. So again, factoring companies' clients are either brokers or carriers. That's who they deal with. No one else. At least, I'm sorry, transportation invoice factoring, because there's several types of factoring companies, but the transportation invoice factoring companies' clients are brokers and motor carriers. Okay.
Mhm.
So,
So,
any
Charles,
questions here?
no, I think that's pretty straightforward. Um,
Okay.
as far as the factoring, I know you probably have to be set up with the factoring before you start trying to broker freight and everything. Uh, you got any like you can kind of throw out some companies that you would recommend as far as that's pretty good with the factoring part of it?
Of course, I recommend the one that's part of our network, the number one, Seven Oaks.
Okay,
All day. Seven Oaks with Monica. Monica's great. Here she go right there. Give her a call. Let me put this in the. She's all over the website, either on the main services page of the website or uh yeah, under services, affiliates and partners. She would be under factory and boom, and it goes down to there, and there she is right there. Or if you're in the portal, right, in the freight broker portal, she would be under affiliates and Seven Oaks. But give her a shout out, let her know that you are part of Exodus with Charles, and take it from there. And
okay,
she usually chimes in our dispatcher and sometimes our freight broker trainings and say, guys, you got any questions, I'll answer. And she does a wonderful job of answering questions. And she's very good. She's been, what is it, 25 years of service. So
okay.
they do a 95% advance on factoring. They charge 2% for the first 45 days, and then it gets different after that. But that's to give you a chance to build up your invoices. That's why it's so cheap. 2% is not bad for factoring. So,
That's
okay.
2% both ways for the carrier and the broker, or
It's that's a great question. I'm not sure if it's for the this is more it may be more so for the carrier than it is for the broker. It may be a little bit, it may be 2.25% for the broker. Um, but that'd be a great question to ask her when you talk to her though. You let them know you're a broker. What is your rates? What is your is that 2% for the first 45 days in your um advertisement? Does that apply to the broker or does it apply to the carrier or both? And then see what she says. And her number and email is there, her website is there, and then yeah,
okay,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's stuff you got to know because that's almost 5% both ways if you got to.
right. And ask those serious questions too. Like for example, ask her to explain to you. I'll tell you what they are, but have her explain them to you because I don't want to do a disservice to Seven Oaks by trying to explain something that I may explain incorrectly. But ask her about recourse and non-recourse. Ask her about the UCC1 filing, right? And see what she says. Now I understand what they are, but she gives a better explanation because that's her livelihood. She does that on a daily basis for a living. So um, so yeah.
So what's the recourse and the non-recourse? What's that?
So recourse and non-recourse deals with who does the onus or the responsibility falls on when someone does not pay or repay, because factoring companies get repaid, they get paid back, right? Because they give it advance, but the money has to come back to them. They have to get paid somehow. So whether it's in the case of a broker, it's either the broker or the customer, the shipper. So who does the recourse falls on when it's time to pay the factoring company back? That's what that means, the recourse part. And then the UCC1 filing or UCC2 means that who's ever guilty of that and does not pay them, then they file a what's called a UCC1 or UCC2 lien, LIEN, against the party who was guilty, whether it's the broker or the customer, in the case of a broker-shipper relationship. So, and that's in the um, fine print. But you with Monica, she will explain that to you very thoroughly. That's just them. They have no recourse. So if someone loans you money and they don't pay you back, then this is their recourse of trying to get their money back. They're going to file a lien against either your personal stuff. So I think UCC1 is personal, UCC2 is just business, but she'll explain all of that as well. But you wouldn't have anything to worry about in this regard unless you plan on not paying back a factoring company for services rendered, right?
Mhm.
So, but it's still good to know what those things are
Exactly.
as
Exactly.
as a business owner. You want to know you don't intend on not paying back something, but you still want to know what the process is if for whatever reason let's say you get sick and you're incapacitated for a while, no one else is working the brokerage, but the factoring company don't know that, they're still expecting their money. So there could be several variables and factors that may lean towards a UCC1 filing and things like that. So you would never know. But it's good to ask those questions. And anytime you deal with any company, whether it's a factoring company, whether it's a insurance company, if you get contracts in paperwork form, PDF form, read the fine print, please. And if you have any questions, ask those questions. Those things are there for a reason. Those companies been around for years, so this is how they do their jobs, but you still want to understand the process. Even if you never get involved with them, you still want to understand the process. So when you come in contact with another factoring company, you can ask those types of questions to them and see what their responses will be. You see? So, and that's
So
the beauty of it.
I know we touched on this one time before, but Charles, can you kind of walk through the factoring aspect of brokering? Just kind of bring me up to speed once again on the process and how it exactly works. From the
Certainly.
carrier making a delivery and getting the invoices from the shipper. I just want.
Certainly. So okay, great question. So you have a factoring company as a broker, right?
Mhm.
And let's say your carrier has a factoring company as a carrier. So now there's two different factoring companies, right, involved. But let's say your carrier decided to use your factoring company because your factoring company had, better rates and things like that, right? Your factoring company provides let's say a 90% advance, right? So let's say you got as a broker, your shipper tendered or gave you loads in the amount of $3,000. They tendered you a load for $3,000. Okay. So let's go to the screen and so I can give a visual of this a little bit better, right? That way it'll help bring home the point. All right. Can everybody see the whiteboard?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Cool. Let me move some things around. So Mr. Damon asked a question about factoring and how it works and what's the process. Okay, so if I can write on this thing correctly, let me erase this and go further down. Okay, so factoring from a broker, shipper, carrier perspective, right? So the shipper tenders a load to you, the broker. right? You have a discussion with the shipper. You guys say, okay, you guys agree to work together. Hey, I want you to be my broker. I want to tender you. I want to give you, you either accept or reject the tender. If you accept the tender, then you're responsible for moving the load. They tendered you a load, a shipment going from point A to point B, so many miles. It was a decent rate per mile, so much so that you can pay the carrier a fair wage and you still can make your profit margin off of it. Okay, so $3,000. That was the tender. Okay. And your profit margin, let's say for a broker, was 20%. Okay. So if you're making 20% off of each tender, you stand to make how much? $600, right? 20% times 3,000. Is that correct? So with me so far, guys, what's 20% of 3,000? 600, right? Three times two. So far, so can you everybody hear me? I want to make sure I'm good.
Yeah, that's correct, Charles.
Okay, okay. I thought I lost you guys for a minute. Okay. All right. So that's your profit margin. We call it the margin, profit margin. I'm just gonna say PM, profit margin, but your margins. When I say margins, you look at the margin 20%. So that's the verbiage you're gonna hear sometimes in brokerage. What's your margin? What are you looking to margin off of that tender? Oh, I'm looking at margin about 20%. Okay, $3,000. Okay, you're looking to make $600 profit for each load tender. So that means that how much is left so 600 from 3,000 is 24 that you have to offer to move the load to the carrier, right?
Hmm.
With me so far?
Yeah.
So you margin at 20%, you're looking to make 600 off of 3,000, 24 left. Let's say the average amount for that lane is uh the average is let's say 1,800. So even after taking your 20% margin off, you still have $600 more money in the remainder of that money, that tender, to still pay the carrier a fair because it's still above the market. The market is 1,800 for that lane. Let's say Norfolk to Florida or whatever, Norfolk to Tallahassee, Jacksonville, 1,800, right? You're not going to post it on the load board as a broker for 2,400 because that's $600 above the market. Now, what you can do is post it for maybe 100 or 200 more to kind of motivate a carrier to call you, right? Let's say $200 more. Plus 200 will be what? 2,000, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. So you posted it for 2,000, $200 plus 200 above the market. Okay. Carriers are going to call you, ring, 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 trying to book that load, right? You book it for 2,000. You had after taking your 600 out, you had 24. You booked it for 2,000. So how much more you still have left?
400.
400. Who do you think that goes to? That goes to you. So you got 600 off the top plus your 400 after you know, did what you did with it because you got a so as a broker you have what the shipper pays, right?
Hmm.
You have a target rate and then you have a max payout. What do you how much more are you willing to pay? So your target rate was the target rate is what the market is. What your max payout is, you pay the extra $200 above. That's your max payout. You're not looking to go higher than that because you still want to make some more money, extra profit. So now carrier picks up the load, $2,000. They deliver it. Everything works out. There's no overs, shorts, and damages, OS and Ds. There's no claims filed against it. Everything worked out. Everything was good. So we're getting to the factoring piece now, right? Everything was good. And the factoring company paid, the factoring company advanced you, the broker, the tender amount of the load. I'm sorry, let me get this off of here. So the tender amount of the load was 3,000, right? So what am I doing? Sorry about that, guys. There we go. So the tendered amount of the load was 3,000. The factoring company gave you an advance, 90% advance of that. They don't give you an 100% advance because they still got to make their money. So they'll give you a 90% advance. 90% advance. So what's 90% of 3,000? 2,700, right? 9 times 3 is 27. I'll do it faster for you guys, right? So I deal with numbers all day. So 2,700. So they'll give you an advance of 2,700 and they'll keep the other 300 in reserve until the customer pays and they'll release that 300 to you, the broker, minus their percentage. Okay. 2,700 that they advance to you, you had, which is more than enough to cover what you had that carrier move it for. Remember, 2,000? So you got the play money. All you need in order to qualify for this from the factory company to give you this advance is you need to get the documentation from the carrier once they deliver because you want to have the ability to give them quick pay. You wanted the ability to pay them 24 to 48 hours after delivery. That's called quick pay. Okay? Quick pay. Okay, QP, quick pay. I'll just put pay. But in order to get quick pay, the carrier, and you require this of your carriers as a broker, you need a copy of all the documentation that you need from them. What are some of the things you would need from a carrier in order to prove to the factoring company and yourself and the customer that the load was delivered? What are some of the documents you need?
Uh, Proof of delivery.
The POD
Yeah.
of delivery. That's the number one thing, right? So the BOL becomes the POD after all parties have signed it. What do I mean by that? Well, the BOL starts off at the shipping location where the load is picked up, the bill of lading. Okay. It becomes a POD, let's see, at the shipper. It becomes a POD at the receiver once the goods are delivered, right? It's loaded at the shipper. It's checked, pallet count, piece count, all the BOL stuff. It's signed by the shipper and signed next to it by the carrier and time stamped and date, proving that everything was loaded. There's no damages, there's no overs, there's no shorts. What's what we call in the industry OS&D, overs, shorts, and damages. So everything was perfect at the shipping location. The load is transported by the carrier, however many days it takes, to the receiver. It's offloaded at the receiver. There's no overs, there's no shorts, there's no damages. Everything was perfect on both ends. The receiver signs the BOL as a clean BOL, which turns into a POD, proof of delivery. So it's signed at the shipping location by the shipper, time stamped by the carrier. It's signed at the receiving location by the receiver, time stamped and signed by the carrier, verifying everything. And now this POD acts as your invoice also. You can create a separate invoice. This is the carrier actually that turns it into the broker. They give everything to the broker. The broker's going to invoice the shipper to get paid, and then the shipper is going to pay the broker. Now, factoring companies involved in this factoring, they step in advance to pay, and they do all of this leg work for the broker because they've already advanced that 90%. Remember that 90%, that 2,700. They've already given you this cash flow. So now when you turn all the paperwork in, Mr. Broker, to the factoring company, they'll have all the necessary paperwork they need. They have the tender amount, they have any receipts, the POD or BOLs, POD, any receipts from lumper or whatever you had, whatever the carrier turned into you to get to the factory and your invoice. Because they've already advanced the broker the upfront money. That's what factoring company does or do for you. They're doing everything that you do as a broker. The only difference is they're giving you the money up front and they're charging you for that upfront money. That's basic. That's basically what they're doing.
Now, Charles, let me ask you this. All right, they advanced 90%, $2,700. The carrier agrees to do the load for 2,000. Okay. Yeah, just say for instance they charging They charge do they now the carrier, does his fee come out of that 2,000 that the factoring company, you have the money available to pay the carrier once the load has been delivered. But is
Yes,
the fee
you have. Yeah, the carrier's fee, what the carrier, in other words, what the carrier should be paid for doing their job, comes out of that advance money. Yes.
okay? So he wouldn't get exactly 2,000. It'll just be 2,000 minus his 2% fee or whatever. We just using 2% as an example.
Right. So if it's if it's the broker's factoring company, the carrier is still going to get paid what's on the rate confirmation. In this
Okay,
case,
okay,
$2,000,
all right,
right? So the carrier, the rate confirmation said $2,000, the rate con, right?
okay,
You have 2,700 at your disposal
mm-hmm,
because your factory company, the broker, we're talking about the broker's factory company, not the carrier's factory company. The broker's factoring company has advanced you 90% of the tender amount, right, which is $3,000. The tender amount is $3,000. They gave you 90% of that because you're working with as a broker with your factory company with the shipper, between the broker and the shipper. You're using factoring to get some of that money. So they've advanced you 90% of 3,000 is 2,700. Okay. Now
mm-hmm,
the factory company is going to invoice the shipper $3,000.
okay,
They're going to invoice him the full amount. They've advanced you 2,700 of that. Okay. See how the money works? It's like a payday loan thing. Like one of those payday loans. I don't know. Well, I don't know if you've done it before with payday loans, but you put your 2 week check up against a $500 loan, and they come back once you get paid. They'll take out the 500 plus whatever interest that they charge for giving you that money ahead of time. It's the same thing with factoring.
okay. I got you.
Not on a larger scale, but the payday loan they charge them 1,000% or whatever, but they're only charging the factoring company anywhere between 1.5 to about 5%. 1.5 to about 5, depending on how they qualified you as a factoring company, depending on whatever factors they use to qualify. You could fall at 2%, whatever, like Seven Oaks, for example, 2%. So the rate con out of the 2,700 that you've been advanced by the factory company, you can pay the carrier. That's the whole point. You want to pay them quicker. 24 to 48 hours after they deliver and turn in the paperwork to you that you're going to give to the factory company to bill or invoice the shipper. But the carrier is going to get the 2,000 because you have 2,700. So you got 2,000 to give them 24 to 48 hours after they deliver
Mm-hmm,
because you want to keep your carriers moving and happy. So they got paid quick. They can keep going to the next load. You can do that over and over again because you have the capital from the factory to do that. Now, if you didn't have factoring, you would be at the mercy of the shipper because you got to wait on the net terms of what the shipper's paying. Shippers pay net 30, net 45, net 60 days, right? Those are the net terms. You can't afford to do that as a broker. You'll go under. You got to pay your carrier so they can keep moving. That's another advantage or a reason why to go with factoring. If you just started as a broker, you have no factoring. Your carrier has a factoring company, but the carrier's factoring company said, well, we can't work with you because what guarantees we're going to get our money quick because you're relying on the shipper to pay you 45 days after we deliver. We can't wait that long, says the carrier's factoring company. We got to keep moving. We need money for fuel, repairs, maybe, just to keep moving. So it's ideal for the brokers to have a factory to help them in that process to get that advance up front and then that other stuff in reserve until the shipper pays them. They release the reserve minus their percentage, and then everybody's happy.
So you'll make 700. The broker will make 700 up front. They'll keep 300 in reserve, and then once the shipper pays, the
The
factory
factory
company gets
company,
their money from the shipper
they release the 300 because
minus their fee.
because the shippers paid the factory company according to let's say they waited net 30. So after net 30 days, the shipper paid the factory company 3,000. So the $300 that the factory company held in reserve gets released back to you, the broker. You've already gotten 700 plus the 300, which is 1,000. right? Remember the scenario we had 600 off the top plus the 400, that's
Hmm.
also 1,000. See how that comes around?
Oh yeah.
So now minus their fees, whatever that percentage is, like 1%. Now the fee is going to be on the fee for the tender, like 1% of the tender, not 1% of the 300 or whatever. It's whatever that tender, because they're giving you an advance on the amount of the tender. So they're charging their percentage on the amount of the tender amount, which is the 3,000. Keep that in mind. All right. Just so you guys will know. Keep that in mind. You guys, you understand that, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay, okay, it's cool. So to make sure, right? I don't want no confusion there. Remember, these are factoring companies. They're making their money. They've advanced you because they advanced you what? They advanced you 90% of what amount? The 3,000. So it makes sense that they're going to get paid a percentage of what amount? The 3,000, right? They would be foolish and out of business very quickly if they only charged you 1.5 to 5% of the money that they released that was in reserve. They're not making no money. They're charging you for what they advanced you, what they're getting being paid of what they advanced you, the 90%, the 3,000. So that's how that works. Just want to make sure that we're clear on that. So,
They're making a nice little profit.
well, 2% of $3,000 is what? $60?
Yeah.
So, so they, you know, so they got their 3,000 back plus $60, 3,060. Right? But that's just one shipment. Let's say you're a brokerage and you got like 50 shipments a month, 50 loads a month. 50, we call them shipments, loads, whatever the term that you want to use, right? In the industry, on the broker side, we call it shipment. On the carrier side, we call it loads, right? But if you are a broker and you're moving 50 shipments per month or 50 loads per month, right? Draw a line through that. Then and they're tendered at let's say $3,000, right? So now let's bring the calculator up. Let's say 3,000 times 50. What is that? 150,000?
Yeah.
So 3,000 times 50, 150,000. And you're charging 2% of that now times 0.02%. So now that's 3 grand a month for that one client that's moving 50 shipments a month. Now, let's say you got so many clients doing the same thing. Let's say you got per month. Let's say you got the factoring company. Let's say they got 20 clients that they're doing for that. And they got plenty more. I'm just saying, I'm just giving you the numbers now. 20 clients, and this is per month. So that's $60,000 a month. So they're making their money in volume. No,
Hmm.
no question. So, but they reel you in with the small rates, and then they'll just build up over time. So the goal of factoring companies and what they're hoping for with brokerages and carriers is for a broker, they want you to get more shipments per month or per week or however, whatever the frequency is. For the carriers, they want you to move more loads as a factoring company so they can make their money, their percentages off of each load that you move as a carrier. So
Hmm.
they're making their money in the volume. They come in low and they hope for volume. And now also too, some factory companies will put in the contracts is after so many days, if you don't produce so much volume or whatever, they may charge you a penalty for that, right? Because they can't afford to keep waiting for you to either get a shipper as a broker or to get loads as a carrier in order to float you this money. So they will penalize you for that. So you know.
Okay. Okay.
So it's a business world. It's a dog eat dog world, but that's just how it is, you know. So you just have to decide if you want to participate in the game. In order to do that, you got to know the rules first. You want to learn the rules before you participate in the game, right? Just like going to play basketball, but you got a football mentality. You can't play basketball as a football player, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. I said I would do an hour, but we've been an
Yeah.
hour and a half, so it's fine. Any questions? Hopefully, we explained this very thoroughly. We went into the basics of that. We used Damien, Brother Damien as an example to go into details of the basic requirements, and then we got into um, the different packet types as the next steps as a broker. And then we talked about factoring as well as a broker, just getting your back end infrastructure in place. And then at some point, you want to understand how to, target customers, what industry you want to choose, or just any industry. You can just go to Google and type
That's
in manufacturers in my area or whatever, right?
that's a question, Charles. With niches, just starting out, would you recommend like just trying to target a specific niche right up front?
I would say yes and no. Um, I would say see what's moving in your area. Like if you want to start um, moving freight specific, because as a new broker, I would start in your area and then branch out, right? That way you can make yourself physically available if you have to visit a shipper to kind of close the deal in person, right?
Okay,
So see what's moving in your area, what type of products, what type of trucks are moving. That'll help you determine the type of commodities and the type of companies to target that have those commodities or that produce or manufacture those commodities. And that would be my advice for you.
okay,
Okay.
all right,
All right, guys. I appreciate it.
all right. We appreciate it, Charles. Appreciate
Thank,
it, man. Appreciate it.
thank you for your time and thank you for your input, Mr. Damien. And best of luck to you. Of course, we're going to be following. I follow everybody to see how they're doing and any questions, as far as brokering, getting customers and stuff like that. Oh, by the way, I can throw some customers at you. Honestly, you just got to close the deal. Cox Communication here in the Norfolk, Virginia area. Tyson and Purdue off the Eastern Shore in Virginia. What is that? What is Tyson? I'm trying to. Cape
You said
Charles, Cape Charles, Virginia. That's in the Eastern Shore part of Virginia. Let's see, Tyson, Purdue. Those are chicken companies, chicken manufacturers. Cox Communication, they're telecommunication. You're going to use flatbeds for the chicken companies. Obviously, are reefers. Um, the telecommunications are flatbeds because they use large fiber optic coils that on the flatbeds.
you say cost?
Cox,
Oh,
COX.
cost. Okay,
Yeah,
I got you.
yeah, Cox Communications. Um, Tyson and Purdue, Smithfield Foods in Smithfield, Virginia, drive-in or reefer. Um, who else I talked to the other day? I just be talking to people just to be talking to them, and I just say, okay, they may make a good customer. Let me throw them at somebody, and then go from there.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, that's a good input,
yes, sir.
sir. Appreciate that.
All right, guys. I will see you Friday, 6 p.m., unless otherwise notated, but I will definitely see you Friday at 6 p.m.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Appreciate everything.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
You too. All right.